Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Mystery Red Reads. I am Mystery Red, your host, and this is my disclaimer. This beta read in concrete is at the author's request. This video is for learning purposes. This is a beta read in concrete of a piece of original fiction. Today we're looking at Chapter 2 for Rose-Colored Mirror. I think she had told me that I think she told me the working title was Two Little Old Ladies. I'm going to check my notes, but let's see if I can look at them really quick. I think it was just a working title. They wanted something, I guess, a little more, no, they're undecided at this point. So I told them I'd keep that in mind. Why can I not find there it is. I told them I'd keep that in mind, but I probably needed to read more to get... Sometimes I'll be working on a piece and I'll have like a working title as well that I'm not happy with. Actually, one of the pieces that I've got that I'm revising right now, I don't like the title anymore, and I'm actually changing direction with the story, and the title doesn't seem like it fits anymore. So I'm actually uncertain too what I want to call mine, and I kind of feel like sometimes as you're reading, all of a sudden there's a pivotal moment in the story or a poignant piece of words that came together, and they just kind of like, they leave you with a feeling, and sometimes I feel like the title can often come from that. So let me take a look here to be accurate. And I believe Martha's Portal is the working title. So we're going to go ahead and read Chapter 2 of the working title, Martha's Portal. And I will include a link to my read of Chapter 1 in the description. And we're just going to plunge right on in here and get started. If I could get my mouth to work, because that's kind of important right now. But anyway, here we go. Chapter 2, A Suitable Sacrifice. The way out of the basement was much different from their seemingly endless journey into it. Liddy turned her back to the portal, took one step, and there was the palely lit stairway right in front of her. She felt bad leaving the old lady in the basement alone, but talk of sacrifices was the last straw. She had enough evidence against her employer to quit without shame. But then again, oh my gosh, Liddy's cute too. Oh my goodness. I did not give a recap of this story. You'll just have to listen to the read for Chapter 1, because there's a lot going on here, as there usually is in the beginning of a story, as we're setting up our tale. Liddy is a very special little person, and we are getting to know her. She is quirky and fun and unique, and she is neurodivergent and just absolutely wonderful. We are not quite sure what exactly... Liddy has a little bit of some challenges she's facing, and we're not exactly sure what those are. I happen to have spoken with the author, and so I am now in the know on what is going on with Liddy. And I kind of suspected from Chapter 1, Liddy has some... I don't want to give it away for you guys, but I had my own theories. I mentioned it, I think, in my review of Chapter 1. We'll see how much comes to... I want her to kind of like unfold for us. So we're just going to go in here and see what happens. She has gotten a job. She does not drive. Her mother took her to her first job. She is supposed to be cleaning the house and kind of helping out this little old lady. But this little old lady has turned out to be something in and of herself. She's a wild card. She tried to act sweet in the beginning and offered Liddy a stale cookie. And then Liddy has... I can't remember what the relationship was with her... The little old lady's relationship with the woman that introduced them. I don't know if that was like her sister or a friend or something that helped Liddy get the job working for the little old lady. But the minute that woman that introduced them leaves, this little old lady is not a sweet, innocent little old lady. She has invited Liddy down into her basement where she says there is a portal and that Liddy is going to help her find a sacrifice. We do not know what the sacrifice is for or what the context of a sacrifice is in this instance. We do know that she has mentioned a car and that Liddy looks like she could drive a car, and Liddy's like, I cannot drive a car. So and somehow the car comes into play with the portal, but we do not know how yet. So that's my recap. Sorry I skipped that and did that kind of in reverse, but you could also just go back and listen to chapter 1 and get all the goods. So anyway, let's see. So she has bailed on her. Liddy has already gone down those steps further than I would have gone, because it's like they've gone into a basement. I think it was really dark. There's some strange things, kind of cloudy type. I'm getting kind of like an orb vibe going on down there. And this little lady's not exactly saying very much, and it just definitely all the creepy feelings. So squirmy. I was so squirmy by the end of that. And I guess Liddy has decided she's got enough evidence against her employer to quit and justify it. Well, right, I agree with you, Liddy. Okay, but then again, Liddy couldn't deny that there had been something there. Maybe a projector was used to create that light effect. But how had the basement grown and shrunk? No. Liddy decided that what she had seen was as genuine and bizarre as the old lady herself. Liddy's whole body felt like it was being stuck with pins as waves of emotion shuddered up through her. She could barely climb the basement stairs, falling a little, bumping her shins and then stumbling up the last few steps. I'd say so. I'd be running like that too. She ran through the kitchen and the parlor, into the entryway, and out the heavy wooden door. She closed the door and leaned up against it as if trying to make sure the old lady stayed contained in the house. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. I don't even know if I probably would have just kept right on going. But I mean, she can't drive, so where's she going to run to? Okay, hang on. We had door mentioned in 2 consecutive sentences. It's a little bit too close, that I'd probably consider if something could be reworded, not leaning too much either way. Let's see. She ran through the kitchen and the parlor, into the entryway, and out the heavy wooden door. She closed it. She slammed it shut, leaning up against it as if trying to make sure the old lady stayed contained in the house. That might work. I would fool with this one just a little bit. I'm not going to harp on word echoes in this particular situation too terrible much, because Liddy's challenges and the way that her mind works and the way that she thinks the frequent reuse of some words or the repetitive use of some words could be the way Liddy thinks. And word echoes would be acceptable if it's true to our character and the way that they speak and think. So I am unclear if that is what the author is going for. If it is, then it would be fine. And if it is not, then I would just suggest messing with that sentence right there a little bit, to reword that, to not have the words used so frequently. I'll just quickly say word echo and move on. But I just want to stress that I'm going into this kind of leniently, because I'm still getting a feel for Liddy and if this is just how she speaks and thinks. She's had some dialogue, but a lot of it is her in her thoughts. When we begin getting to know her better, I'll have a better idea of whether or not the author intended this. And my author already knows, and this is for them anyway, so they already know whether or not it's something that needs to be addressed. And sometimes it does, and maybe sometimes it doesn't. So it's worth at least pointing them out. So we're going to proceed. Liddy tried to catch her breath, but that was impossible. She didn't think all the air in the world would be enough for her gasping lungs. She thought about what her one friend had told her about workplace panic attacks. They did suck. Liddy didn't have a phone. She was the only person she knew without one. It wasn't that she didn't want a phone, it was just that phone plans are expensive and she was formerly unemployed. Should she go to a neighbor's house and ask to use their phone? She didn't want to go back inside to use Martha's phone. Liddy's thoughts were interrupted when the doorknob that was sticking into the small of her back started to shake a little. Liddy instinctively grabbed hold of it, preventing it from turning any further. So this is a perfect example of how Liddy is thinking. And yes, it is deliberate and repetitive. And this is kind of the way her brain works. So this would all be acceptable. It's a build on Liddy's character and her personality and the way she thinks. I'm still a little curious about that one, but I do like the consistent use of it here and the way that it is done. All right, we're going to keep going. Let's see. All right, so the doorknob is sticking in the small of her back. It's shaking a little bit. It sounds like little old lady's trying to get out. Oh, and this lady creeps me out. Oh my goodness, she creeps me out. I'm not judging her. I haven't decided whether or not she's good or bad. I haven't decided what her intentions are. Although the word sacrifice does not bode well, but you know, I'm trying not to decide yet. We don't know enough, but sacrifice does not look really good. Anyway, here we go. So Liddy is instinctively grabbing hold of it, preventing it from turning any further. Liddy, dear. Martha, oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. Okay, hang on. This little old lady, she creeps me out. Liddy, dear. Martha's voice lilted a little in an off-putting way. You can't run away from this. For better or worse, you saw what you saw. Don't you have any questions for me? Liddy took a deep breath in one last attempt to placate her burning lungs. She let go of the knob and let the door swing open. She didn't turn around at first, but she knew Martha was probably smiling wickedly in the doorway. Quickly, like a bear trap shutting closed, a bony hand wrapped around her wrist, and Liddy turned around to go back inside. I really am as stupid as a child, Liddy thought as she let herself be led back through the house to the little dining room off the kitchen. Oh my goodness, I'm going to pause for a second. I'm thinking so many things at once. Because first of all, Martha, the little old lady, she makes me squirm. She creeps me out so bad. And so I have to get past that. Liddy, we have to look at we're going to look closer at the writing. Liddy took a deep breath and last attempt to placate her burning lungs. She let go of the knob and the door swung and let the door swing open. Got it. Okay, good. She didn't turn around at first, but she knew Martha was probably smiling wickedly in the doorway. Here's an adverb, and again, it's so interesting how all the rules that you would typically follow can have a situation or a circumstance where you would be lenient with them. And I'm inclined to be that way, especially in this story, given Liddy's character. And that's just because of the way it's an innocent thinking. It's a very different thought process. And so I don't know. It's an adverb. We're just going to roll with it. It's not a huge deal. And I'm inclined to overlook these because of the way Liddy thinks. And so often what happens is we want to write nice and tight and clean, and this is very clean. It's very well done, but we know that we have a stronger verb, or our verb can stand on its own. Okay, so typically you can take this word out and the sentence works well without it, and that's why we just don't do that. It's to have nice, tight, clean writing with strong words. And so typically an adverb can just be plucked out. I'm less inclined to say that. A lot of times I feel like adverbs are used when we speak. Just when we're naturally speaking to each other, I feel like we throw them in there in an effort to be exciting and to describe the way that something happened. And so we're writing the way we speak, but when it's in the text and not in the dialogue, discouraged in writing novels. But at the same time, if it's true to the character, who Liddy would be thinking in that same way that she would speak. And so the rules just seem flexible here. I mean, they're flexible when it comes to adverbs anyway. The idea is to just use them sparingly and not too much. Everybody uses them. If you pick up any book and you look at it and it's been harped on and you've been told not to use them, but if you pick up any book in the library, you're going to find them everywhere. People use them. It's not a bad thing. I think it's just to not overuse them, which you do not. I just want to talk briefly about that and why, if you see me overlooking them and rolling on, it's not that I didn't notice them. It's that I'm very flexible right now because we're getting to know Liddy, and I'm still processing. Taking on writing a disabled character is courageous and challenging. I feel like after talking to this author, she is very equipped to do the job and do it well. And so I come at that with a lot of admiration, but it's also very, very difficult and very tricky. And so we're going to keep going. And my mind is working like crazy right now. Okay, quickly, like a bear trap shutting closed. You might say snapping shut. Maybe. Quickly, like a bear trap snapping shut, a bony hand wrapped around her wrist, and Liddy turned around to go back inside. Okay, so I would have freaked out the minute this lady grabbed me by the wrist. I probably would have shrieked. Maybe. I really think I probably would. I don't know about this little lady. I really am as stupid as a child. Okay, now I gotta say, when I read that line, I feel like that's something that's probably been said to Liddy. And so I'm getting some feels right there, which kudos in a huge way that we've got action here. And we slip in this little internal thought that could literally bring a lump to my throat. I'm going to disclose that I'm very sensitive with disabled characters because I am a guardian for a disabled adult. And so when I read this, I feel like her thought of that kind of makes me sad because I think that someone has probably said that to Liddy. And so now it's almost like she's believing it of herself in this moment. And so I feel kind of bad for her at the same time. So here I have managed to read action, squirm, because this little lady has grabbed her wrist. And in the very next sentence, I'm feeling a pang in my heart. So, wow. I love that. Love that so much. Okay, we're going to keep going. Liddy thought as she let herself be led back through the house to the little dining room off the kitchen. She sat at the old wooden table. The chair she was sitting on wobbled back and forth on its uneven legs as Liddy shifted nervously. She was carefully watching every move the little old lady was making. Martha's actions seemed innocent enough. She had filled a large stainless steel kettle with water, set it on a burner, and left it to boil. She got out a couple china teacups, which made a series of small shuddering clanks on their saucers as the old lady's trembling hands brought them to the table. Liddy felt silly for being so scared of someone this elderly. That is, until she looked at the glittery little eyes, which didn't seem to quite sit right in their sockets. Oh, nice. Nice. Martha slid open the screen door to the patio, which was right off the dining room. Liddy saw two large buckets that contained tomato plants, screened in with the sort of mesh that she assumed must be for keeping bugs and birds away. Liddy was wrong, as usual. The old lady pulled back the mesh and busily started grabbing what Liddy thought were tomatoes from the plants. Liddy was wrong again. Hang on, I'm pausing. I'm trying to highlight the adverbs and just keep moving. Typically, they're words that kind of end in ly and are just little extra words, but I'm purely pointing them out for my author's benefit. They may have used them knowingly, or they may choose to take them out. Again, I'm just going to try to highlight them as I go, but it's reading smoothly and I'm rolling right along, so I'm thinking I'm going to miss it. Let's see. Martha turned around, and in her crooked little hands she held about a dozen large black slugs. They were oozing, slightly squashed from the old lady's tight grip. One slug squirted a yellowish goo where Martha's long pinky fingernail had pierced its skin. Gross! Okay, this woman is giving off witch vibes so hard right now. So hard. Oh my gosh. And these are classic witch vibes, not like naturalist, earthy kind of hippie chick vibes. These are like old, like stereotypical witch vibes. Oh my goodness. Okay, we're gonna keep going. Liddy watched as Martha waddled over to the kettle, which at this point was trying to whistle through a busted flute spout, lifted the lid, and shoved the 12 swarming slugs inside. Gross! Gross! Liddy's stomach and chest tightened at the same time. She was glad she hadn't had lunch yet. The kettle spluttered and splurted, and little specks of black liquid hit the fan hood above the stove. Martha watched the kettle intently for a bit, and then carefully grabbed its handle and pulled it from the burner. She steadied it with her other hand, which she had stuck, slug guts and all, into a brightly colored potholder mitten. Martha pulled both the teacups toward her and poured out a midnight black, almost oily-looking, thick syrup. She sat down across from Liddy, holding one cup and shoving the other right under Liddy's nose. Oh, gross. Gross, 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 gross. Oh my gosh. Wait, why is she putting this in a cup? Is she gonna drink it next? Because, I mean, what are we doing with slug guts? What are we doing? Okay. It smelled like rotten pasta or wet dog. I'm gonna gag. Or maybe the way earthworms smell when they had been left abandoned in a fisherman's fridge for too long. Liddy leaned back so the steam coming from the cup wouldn't hit her face. Am I really supposed to drink this? Liddy put on her most scornful, irritated voice, hoping it would disguise its trembling. Martha looked repulsed. No, don't drink it. It's for scrying. You want to learn more about the sacrifice, don't you? Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. Liddy nodded. She had heard about scrying. It was how people claimed they could look at reflective surfaces to see things happening far away, or even the past and future or otherwise hidden knowledge. Liddy wondered why they couldn't have just used a mirror instead of murdering a bunch of slugs. Still, she was relieved that she wasn't expected to drink the repulsive liquid in front of her. Hold the cup closer and look into it, Martha ordered, staring at Liddy to make sure she obeyed. Liddy took shallow breaths out of the side of her mouth, trying not to inhale the slug steam. As the syrupy liquid cooled a bit, it started to almost shimmer. An image was appearing. There he is, Martha exclaimed with a cackling laugh and glittery, possessive eyes. Our sacrifice. Oh, my goodness. Liddy forgot about the slugs and the smell as she leaned closer to the teacup. It was like watching a silent film in gleaming color. She saw a little round man with a bald head, except for around his ears, which had a bandage-like swath of dark gray hair. He wore wire-rimmed glasses, a dull green dress shirt, and baggy dress pants that had no chance of staying up except for the belt that was cinched so tightly that Liddy wondered if his round belly might not be so round, if his blood was allowed to circulate down a bit more. Okay, that sentence is a little long. I think it even took me a long breath to get it out. I mean, the words work together okay. I would probably just look and see if you could break that up into 2 sentences. I do kind of get the idea that Liddy's thoughts are kind of going quick, and that makes it kind of has a quick feel to it, which fits everything else that's happened so far. So it would not, I kind of read it like the way I feel like her thoughts kind of pour through her head. So I think it would probably even be served better to break it up into two, possibly 3 sentences. I'm sure you could review through this and easily find where to end a sentence and begin another one, and it'll still be exactly what you're saying. So I think that'll probably be really easy to do. The little man was printing some papers, which he carefully lifted from the printing tray, looked at with the sort of disapproval. The little man was printing some papers, which he carefully lifted from the printing tray, looked at with the sort of disapproval Liddy had only ever seen shown by fathers in movies toward their sons, hung his head, and placed the papers in a dull-colored folder, which was still somehow less dull than his shirt. So this one's lengthy too, and it read a little bit awkwardly right. I stumbled over it twice, and it seemed like something was missing. The little man was printing some papers, which he carefully lifted from the printing tray. I kind of feel like it's like he looked at them with the sort of disapproval Liddy had only ever seen shown by fathers in movies toward their sons. Period. Maybe a period right there. He hung his head and placed the papers in a dull-colored folder, which was still somehow less dull than his shirt. There you go. So very, very slight changes there. Very small. Suggestions, of course. All these are only suggestions. Okay. This guy is your suitable sacrifice? Liddy asked incredulously. The old lady laughed again, but this time it was much less of a cackle. She sounded young and happy for a moment. Yes, he's the only one who will do. He might not look it, but he's a very special man and the only one who can help me. Martha paused and then tilted her head in a little shrug. Well, I suppose that's not entirely true. There are 4 others, but they're much less easily accessible. One is royalty, the other is in prison. Then we have the woman with an overprotective husband, and the man who is a boxing champion. All of them are scattered around the world, most overseas. No, Mr. Gerald Vicker is the closest and most vulnerable of the group, so he is the one we must sacrifice. Liddy nodded, watching Mr. Vicker as he sat down in an office chair that was much too small for him. It squished down toward the ground a few inches and wavered a bit back and forth. Mr. Vicker didn't seem to mind. He was busily typing on the computer, leaning in every once in a while so close to the screen that Liddy was sure his nose must be brushing up against it. That would explain why the screen was so smudged. Liddy tried to memorize his features. She now had a name, and she knew what he looked like. She also knew she had to try everything in her power to protect this unfortunate stranger. She would pretend to go along with Martha's scheming until she understood how much of a danger the old lady really posed. She would get the authorities involved if necessary, but Liddy figured they would probably not believe a word of her story, so perhaps she should go to a priest or some sort of spiritualist instead. She frequently watched shows about aliens, so maybe one of those researchers would believe her about the portal and agree to help her out. Liddy knew she had to gather more information on the situation and try to respond in the most appropriate way. She grimly smiled to herself. She thought she was showing a lot of maturity. This is interesting too. So I love how this paragraph shows Liddy's mental capacity, which is she's very smart. I mean, she's very smart. It's showing her, she's actually, first I was surprised that she knew about scrying. So we're getting an idea of how high functioning Liddy is. And yet she has that innocence about her that is absolutely endearing. So let's see. I keep wondering, where is this portal to? And is the sacrifice for him to walk through it? Or is it like, is she really thinking she's going to harm this man? I mean, are we talking sacrifice in the terms of sacrifice? Or is it like, I always kind of like hold out this moment of disbelief of like, maybe it means something else, or maybe it means exactly what we think it means, but we'll see. Why are only certain people suitable for sacrifice? Liddy probed. Martha swirled her teacup around, and Mr. Vicker's features stretched and distorted in the most unnerving way. Oh, it's because of their bloodline. They are the only surviving descendants of a man who once lived here centuries ago. He was the one who created the portal, and only his blood is worthy to be a sacrifice. Okay, we're going for blood here. I mean, she's out for blood. And is she trying to close the portal? What is she trying to do? What does the sacrifice do to the portal? Okay, I'm with Liddy here. We gotta have more information. Liddy resisted the urge to swirl her cup around too. Instead, she focused on remembering exactly what this man's ears looked like. She had heard somewhere that each ear is a unique masterpiece. She wasn't sure she agreed. Martha, how exactly are you going to, do it? That's my business. You only need to worry about bringing him to me. I'm an invalid and can't leave my house, and he lives 5 hours away. You must be the one to catch him. Liddy gave a silent sigh of relief, making sure not to let any of it show on her face. This woman couldn't hurt Mr. Vicker by herself. This meant Liddy could take some time to learn more about her and the strange, dusty light in the basement. Martha, Liddy said in a voice that was louder and a shade deeper than her usual tone, why should I help you capture this man? Martha was still swirling around poor Mr. Vicker. Apart from you being my employee, well, I suppose you should help me because it's the only way you're ever going to find out anything important about the portal. The old lady looked up from the disfigured office worker, grinning with a smile that was just a little too white. Dentures, maybe? This is your dream, after all. You would give anything to protect your chance of reaching Wonderland. Liddy was uncomfortable with the sort of eye contact Martha was employing. She looked away and spoke in a voice that was softer and just a shade higher than her usual tone. You're right. I would never let Wonderland slip away from me. I'll give you Mr. Vicar if that's what you need me to do. I just need some time to figure out how I can catch him and bring him here. I'm going to pause for just a second. We described her voice being a shade deeper than her usual tone and louder. And now we're describing it softer and a shade higher. They're different, but I wonder, if you did that intentionally, I'd roll with it. And I know that sometimes it can play out that way and that you have done this on purpose. If it was just to be descriptive of the voice, the wording is very similar, so that it's almost like an echo with the slightest change. And it did catch my attention. It stood out. Now, if you intended for it to stand out, then you did great. If you did not and you were just trying to describe her voice, I would probably play with the wording on this because it's almost exactly the same. Obviously the sounds are different, but they're very similar, so that you remember that you've just read a similar description above it. And I personally wouldn't want that unless I intended for that. So we're going to keep going. Let's see. So Liddy's contemplating this, but obviously her intentions are not the same as Martha's. She's hoping to thwart her. So is Martha our antagonist? I'm still undecided. I kind of am holding out here, like some reservation, partly because we're still getting to know our characters. Martha's definitely not sending out the right impression, a good impression. Okay, Martha finally let go of her teacup, and the water slowly quieted down, revealing a tired-looking man sitting at his cluttered desk, eating a sandwich that somehow looked even more tired than himself. I will save you, Mr. Vicar, Liddy thought to herself. No dream of hers was worth sacrificing a human life for, even a purgatorial life full of disappointing papers and depressing sandwiches. Nice. Very nice. All right. Okay, I would absolutely flip the page here. There's so many questions to be answered, so much to unravel here. I'm really enjoying this. I have nothing. This is great. It's good. I like it. Liddy is absolutely wonderful. And Martha she's wow. Martha's wow. Okay. First of all, if Martha truly does turn out to be our antagonist, it is not, usually when we have our antagonist and our protagonist, they're not typically in the same room or close proximity for extended periods of time together. If Martha is truly the antagonist, that's kind of a really super squirmy situation, because Liddy's like planning on being around this woman to stop her and not let her know that she's trying to stop her. It's just Martha's a lot. She's very creepy, super high on the creepiness. I'm still holding out there. I'm still thinking, oh, okay, maybe she intends. I'm like making excuses for this woman who is absolutely giving me no reason to make excuses for her at this point. She kind of seems a little batty, so I'm not feeling like, she's creepy, but I don't know if she's a real threat just yet. She's definitely got the creep factor, and I'm still processing there is a portal, so that's real and strange, and there's just so much to unravel here. So yeah, absolutely great job. Fantastic. Thank you so much for letting me read chapter 2 and for trusting me with your words. I will see you guys next time on Mystery Red Reads.